Welcome to the New York Business Leaders Podcast, presented by the Coyle Group. We interview the most interesting and influential business leaders in New York and hear their stories of success, challenges, and lessons learned while building their businesses and personal brands. New episodes drop weekly, so please be sure to subscribe to get updates in your favorite stream. Without further delay, here's your host of the New York Business Leaders Podcast, Gordon Coyle.
Welcome back to the show. I'm Gordon Coyle, and this is the New York Business Leaders Podcast. This week, my good buddy Gabe Capobianchi joins the show to talk about three things. First, his business, which is precision propeller repair in Newburgh, New York. Second, his social media presence, which is totally off the hook. I'll have links to his channels in the show notes, but Gabe's awesome sense of humor shows through in many of his posts. He'll also talk about how he's turned his company's social presence over to a local expert and how that's positively impacted his brand and his business. Last, we're going to talk about Spartan obstacle course racing, which is how I first got to know Gabe. Lots of laughs and great information in store for you in this conversation. Thanks for listening to the podcast. I hope you're subscribed, and if you haven't, please rate this show so others can find it on their favorite platforms. And if you're watching this on YouTube, give it a thumbs up. Thank you. Lastly, if you have an interesting story that you'd like to tell on this podcast, let me know. Drop me an email and let's chat. My email will also appear in the show notes. Now, on to the show. Hey everyone, welcome back to the New York Business Leaders Podcast. I'm Gordon Coyle. I'm really happy to have on the show today a good friend, Gabe Capobianchi.
Yes.
Got it right? Gabe, why don't you take a couple minutes and introduce yourself, tell us about your business, and we'll go from there.
So my name is Gabe Capobianchi. By the way, Gordon, thank you for having me. I'm so excited to do this. So my name is Gabe Capobianchi. I own Precision Propeller Repair, located in the city of Newburgh in New York State. Just as a nutshell of our business, my brother and I own it together. We're going on about 21 years, and we purchased it from an existing owner who retired out of it. And what we do is we basically are a machine shop, and we repair boat propellers for the marine industry in about 4 states. About a 200-mile radius is our service area. And basically what we do is we have a fleet of trucks, and we go to marinas on specific days. We pick up boat propellers and other running gear. We bring it back to our shop. We'll repair it and then re-deliver it several days later. And that's all we do on all day, every day, every day. So we do roughly about, 4 to 5 to 6,000 propellers a year. Amongst other machining, shafting, and different things of running. It's called running gear. Anything under the water, we actually will fabricate and machine.
Great. So for those who are not familiar with boating, how does a propeller need repair? Why does it need repair?
Probably the most obvious thing is depth of water. Depth of water, probably primarily. So people will just run into stuff. People have run into floating refrigerators. People have grounded out because there's islands out there that you can't see. People just don't know how to navigate through the waters. There's channels. A lot of them are inexperienced. Some of them just get caught up in tide issues where they lose track of the tide, and so where there was 8 feet of water, the tide's gone out, so now there's 4 feet, and their draft is 5 feet, which the draft is how much under the boat is underneath the water. Sometimes pulling the boats out of the ramp from the ramp, people forget to bring their drive up, and they just grind right up against it. So it's a culmination of all kinds of different things.
And if somebody's damaged their propeller, I've been in boats where the propeller's been nicked or it's bent up a little bit. You get tremendous vibration. So you really just can't run your boat with a damaged propeller. It's got to get repaired, right?
Yeah, exactly. Because it depends on the severity of the vibration. I mean, if it turns into a margarita mixer where it's just like that the whole time, yeah, it's definitely. But the part that's funny is the reason why it's vibrating is not what people think. It's not like a tire vibrating. It's actually this thing called cavitation, and basically the blades are now out of alignment. So it's not the piece that's broken off that's creating the vibration. It's the fact that they're not tracking behind each other, and it creates this thing called cavitating vibration. So it's basically the rumbling of the water, because in layman's terms, the rumbling of the water because the blades aren't right behind each other, that creates that vibration. It's not necessarily because that piece is broken. Although some props come in with just the whole blade missing. So that obviously will be like a real bad vibration.
You're probably not going to go too far if you've got a blade missing off your prop.
But I've seen some doozies come in here.
Well, I've seen pictures. I'm sorry?
They make great lawn ornaments.
So I've seen some pictures that you post online, and we've talked about this. I'm kind of fascinated that this is part science, but it's part art as well. So how did you and your brother learn this, and how do you teach employees? Because each one of these propellers has a different pitch, and each one of those fins on a propeller has to be perfectly balanced along the others, correct? So tell us a little bit about that.
So, this particular propeller repair is really a handed down science. There is no school to go to. There's no, aside from a welding school, there's no propeller school to learn. So a lot of this has just been handed down through generations. The gentleman that we bought the business from, he started this in probably the early 80s. And a lot of this is still blacksmith style work. Gordon, if you ever came to my shop, you'd actually kind of be a little bit surprised as to the real old school technology that still applies to doing this. Everything is done with a hammer, so to speak. So although every prop has it's different, there's what we call jigs. You might call it jigs for every one of those props. And a lot of it comes with experience. I have a couple guys here that have been with me for 20 years. So as you know, just in your business, when you do something for so long, it just happens. And also those generations of guys that I have here, or me and my brother, we hand that down to somebody else that comes in here. So a lot of the guys that learn how to do this, it's just handed down and handed down. And that's how I see this continuing, is one day I'll hand this information over. Now, I do have to say, the stuff that I do, the technical stuff, when a customer calls up and he has a 70-foot Ocean and he's got twin 700 Cummins diesel motors and he has questions about what propellers, well, that's a little bit different. That involves more research. That involves a little bit more technical aspect. And quite honestly, the good thing about us is we're not afraid to ask other people. So we've developed, me personally, I've developed relationships with the manufacturers, other prop shops, other guys that have been doing this longer than me. And I'll ask them their advice, because I'm never going to claim that I know it all. I'm more than happy to ask other people. Some guys have been doing this for 40 years. So again, that's how this stuff is taught and learned, is just handed down. On the other side, we do have a program that when we hire somebody, because there's a lot of welding involved, and we can talk about that later. So, but there's a lot of welding involved. And so we take younger employees, and if we send them to school for welding, and we'll pay for their welding education. And in turn, they'll take that and they'll hopefully stay here, almost like a mentorship program. And that's worked out pretty well so far too.
So a combination of handwork as well as machine work, like Do you deploy CNCs, lathes, those kinds of machines?
So when we fix boat propellers, the short answer is no, but we do have one main computer that measures some of the bigger propellers, the bronze ones. The aluminum and the stainless props, if they follow a certain geometry, then how we fix them, it usually comes out better than it was brand new because the factories are using machines and they're doing them as bulk. When we do them, we do each one of them one at a time. So the end product usually is better than when they are brand new. But there are no necessarily, there aren't specifically machines involved, except for one scanning machine that we use for bronze propellers, which are usually a little bit bigger. The CNC machines, we do have two of them, a lathe and a milling machine, because we make shafting here also for boats. So we have one CNC machine that will do about a 2.5-inch shaft. And then we have a milling machine that that will mill keyways and stuff like that into it. It has a lot more capability, but we've only had it for about 1.5 years. And so I don't know if you know much about CNCs. They literally could do anything, but it's just a matter of learning it. And quite frankly, I'll give kudos to my brother because both he and I, we knew nothing about CNC machines, but we took a chance because we knew that the opportunity was there and the market was there. So we bought one and he learned how to do a CNC machine through the manufacturer school. My brother is super smart. He's actually he definitely missed his calling, but he's so smart, especially with numbers. When you do a CNC machine, you have to be good with numbers, and he's totally knocked it out of the park. So that's really helped us kind of evolve into another part of the business.
Great. You had mentioned earlier that you are like a machine shop. So do you do work outside of propellers, machining other parts or making other things out of metal?
We do, but like that much. And only because we're so busy with just that work that it's hard to venture into other stuff.
Got it.
And also, if I could add, the time frame that we allow ourselves or customers allow us to turn propellers around, it's like this. I mean, it's just a constant. So any break in that flow of doing another project, like sometimes it's just crazy. Because there's this things called transients. It's boaters that are going from, whether they're doing the Great Loop or whether they're going from upstate now, soon the transients will start going back down to Florida and vice versa. They're coming up. So they get caught up in the locks. They damage their propellers. If they're put up on stands at a marina to have the props taken off, they could spend up to $400 or $500 a day, if not more, just up on blocks. So they need that stuff back like right away, sometimes the same day. So trying to take on other projects that's outside of the scheme of what we do is a lot of times hard. But I will say this, we're known in the community here locally that we'll always get a chair to weld. We'll always get a lawn, hey, this was my mother's chair. It broke at a party. Is there any way you guys can weld this? Or a rim that breaks on the great city of Newburgh potholes in the wintertime. So we're usually very open to helping out the people in the community, at least.
Got it. So what do you do in the off season?
There really is no off season. It's just people aren't in a rush for it.
Okay. And can you tell us, smaller boat propellers, small outboards, are those disposable or do you repair those as well?
So we repair anything from something that's 7 inches to the biggest prop that we do is about 72 inches.
Wow.
This is the small propellers, believe it or not, and I've noticed it especially over this past couple of years, is they're not as cheap as you think. Even though they're this big, they're still $170, $180 versus usually it's a little bit less than, it's a little bit like right around half or 3/4 to repair. So yeah, they're not as disposable. And also over the past couple of years, from anything else, you can't get stuff.
Yeah.
So the supply of boat propellers is just as scarce as the supply of anything else that you're running into.
Yeah. Okay. Understood. You mentioned 72-inch propeller.
Mm-hmm.
What sort of a boat does that come off of?
So let's see. So I'm going to say probably the best thing that you could probably put your hands around is when they were doing the Tappan Zee Bridge. So all those barges that were constructing the Tappan Zee Bridge, we were repairing them.
Okay.
And because you have to remember that they were transporting a lot of things, and also they had to build from the shore out. So the shore, going back to low tides, this, that, all that stuff. These barges had to work close to the shores, so they would damage them. So I'm going to say something like 72 inches really came off of a lot of work boats.
Okay. Got it. Tell us about the challenges you face in your business. If you had to identify one or two big challenges, what would they be?
I'm going to say number one has got to be employment.
Yeah.
Employment. I'm not going to lie. This is hard work. It really is hard work. The one thing that I always strive to do is try to make it not simpler, but I really try to make it as easy as I can, because there's some days inside there, just recently, last couple of weeks, it's 98 degrees in there. You can't avoid it. It's 95 degrees outside. We have welding machines running constantly, swinging hammers. It's not like we can keep air conditioning in there. It just doesn't work. You're just talking about a metal environment that would just destroy anything. So hiring guys that would want to do this is a challenge. And honestly, the way things are right now with the challenges of hiring people, it's even more challenging. So that's why I kind of offer that whole welding program. I try to give incentives. And since we are family based, me and my brother, we have the ability to think outside the box for different things. I don't know how else to put it, but people, when they come work here, we try and take care of them the best we can. Flexibility, opportunity, and quite honestly, I encourage some of these guys. Yeah, you know what? You can use me as a stepping stone. Learn how to weld, learn how to do the stuff, and if you want to go off to greener pastures, go ahead. I don't want to stop you. I'd love for you to stay here, but it is what it is. So trying to hire people and keep them here lately has been a giant like roadblock. Like I've advertised everywhere, Facebook, all that stuff, and it's not easy.
Yeah, I would say that just about every employer I speak to, that employment is one of their greatest challenges.
Yeah, that, and now I think if you ask me a second one, the second one is going to be the cost of materials that are going to creep up. We're in the metal industry, and now metal is starting to go up. So I don't know where that's going to lead. I don't know where, between the shortages and then the metal increase and just the inflation we're starting to see the bits and pieces of inflation here, because whether it's the cost of the materials, whether it's trying to hire people, there was a day where not too long ago where the hourly rate that I can pay somebody was this amount, was this amount. Now it's this amount. And a lot of these guys are inexperienced and they're asking for this.
Yeah.
It's a challenge.
Yep. We hear that all over, from all different industries. Level of experience, the desire to work, the desire to put the effort in, all that kind of stuff. It's tough, for sure.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I want to switch gears a little bit and talk about social media.
Okay.
One of your favorite topics. So I'll just tell the audience that Gabe has a great social media presence. I think you have a great media firm that you're working with. They help out. They get stuff posted out on Facebook and social channels. Why don't you tell us a little bit about how social media has changed your business, if it has?
So I will say, so several years ago, I'm not sure exactly when, but I'm going to say it's got to be about 4 years ago. I was doing a lot of the posting myself for our business. And the thing is I kind of came to a conclusion of how many times can I post a picture of a broken propeller? You know, it's like the bologna sandwich. No matter what you do, it's still a bologna sandwich. So I think the best thing that I did was understand that and take myself out of that. And I went out and I went out and I interviewed a couple social media companies. And I ended up with Megan Donovan of Social Output Media. And she's great. And probably the thing that's greatest about her is she didn't know anything about boat propellers in the beginning, which was great because I think that's really what we needed, was someone that could look outside the box with me. So how's it helped? Number one is you get a completely different vantage point. Instead of me thinking what somebody wants to see, I let somebody else, obviously more professional person, guide that. And it's okay if it doesn't go down a road that kind of nets something out. It's okay because there's so many roads with social media. I don't know if you've seen, I put my dog on there, Vito. He's a little Frenchie. I got to tell you, there's people that send me props there's a guy who sent me a prop from Kentucky because he's got the same exact dog.
That's great.
There's people that come in here all the time with their kids. Hey, where's Vito? So stuff like that. And now with the, so basically, so what she's done was she said, okay, let's put some sauce on this. You know, let's kind of think outside the box. So she's been really, really good at helping. And now we work together I'll send her something, or I love TikTok. I think TikTok is great. And so I'll start making some videos and I'll send it to her and she'll post it out there. And sometimes I think a lot of people like that because it makes us look, it completely takes the drape down. It's like you've seen, you know, they see Oz. And since I'm the owner, when they come in here, they're talking to the owner, the guy who's, you know, making funny TikToks, or the guy or the seeing Vito. So they feel very connected with me already when they come in. And some people actually are like, hey, that's cool. You know, you guys do some really cool stuff. So it allows me to connect with customers. Even if they don't come here, it allows them to connect with me as a real person. And I think as a consumer, I know I want that because there's enough runaround that you get with other businesses. So now if they have a problem, like it's me, I'm the guy, like it's me, Gabe, like you don't have, there's not layers. So what social media has done is it's taken all the layers away. So good, bad, or indifferent, there are no layers. They know it's me. And so I'm representative of the company, and that kind of helps because it really helps me connect with somebody like you. And obviously it's working for you to say, hey, you know, hey, that's great. Because in one sense, I'll make a funny TikTok about, you know, of deep frying a Twinkie, but on the other side, I'll show you how a prop comes from this to that. So I'm not afraid to put myself out there. And if I can give advice to any business out there, is it's okay just to spend a couple bucks and hire somebody else to let them market your business for you, because you only see what you see. I only see a broken propeller. She sees Vito, she sees branding, she sees involving the manufacturers that I deal with. She deals with like promoting other stuff. So it's not just a propeller, it's the whole marine world.
That's a great perspective, and you've really broken it down and given us a good perspective on it. You mentioned the word branding, and I think that a lot of what you're doing is very personal branding. I think people get a great, sense of what your sense of humor is like. I kid you a lot about it all the time because I think you're enjoying it too much. But I think that's the best part about it. And it takes you from this kind of like metalworking, hard kind of business to this very funny, engaged, like you really connect. And that's the sense I get. And what I'll do is I'll make sure that I put your channels in the show notes to this podcast. So if somebody wants to see it, they can and get a sense of what you're doing. And I think that's really very, very positive.
And you know what the important thing is the proof is in the pudding, because they get an excellent product through that whole thing. In the end, this propeller looks like $1 million. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So in the end, we have great Google reviews. So they're getting like almost everything inside there.
Right.
And I make it enjoyable for my guys too. Every once in a while, I try and get them in the video, but
So let's move on to a topic that's near and dear to both our hearts. And this is how I met Gabe, through obstacle course racing. For the listeners that don't know, I've become a fanatic around obstacle course racing, Spartan racing, and Gabe has as well. And I want to spend a few minutes talking about your field of dreams. So can you tell the listeners a little bit about what I'm talking about when I say field of dreams, how it started, and where it's going? Because this in and of itself is a fascinating story to me.
Well, so it's called Obstacle Wonderland. And basically what had happened was in 2019 when everything, okay, actually, Gordon, can I tell a really funny story about this?
Yeah.
Okay. So when did you start obstacle course racing?
October 2019.
Okay, watch this. So we kind of started the same time. So how about I say this? I'm going to say in 2018, I was really heavy. So I lost a lot of weight and I started going to these boot camps. And so fast forward, somebody said, hey, you should do a Spartan race. I said, what's a Spartan race? So I went on and I looked it up, Spartan. And it was a month away was the Spartan in Sterling Forest on Father's Day.
Okay.
So long story short, I did not know a single thing except for I wanted to do it because I was in this thing about challenging myself and it comes from the accident that I had, which is a whole nother podcast. But I was up for challenging myself. So real quick. So the Spartan race came up. I had no idea about it. So I showed up. I had long pants and a long shirt on. Right? I was the only one. I remember showing up there and it's just like nobody's wearing pants and long shirt. Everybody else in shorts, maybe a shirt, right?
Yeah. Most of the young guys are all, built like buff and they're racing with no shirts on. Not me, just to let the audience know.
Here's me, right? The only one wearing pants and a long sleeve shirt. So I get up in the corral, right? And I had no idea. Third obstacle, water obstacle, go right in. And I'm like, okay. So I've just realized why nobody wears pants and long shirt. So it was only a sprint, but 3 miles back then was just like, it was like an ultra. It was like forever. So I remember going through there and there were several water obstacles. And I remember carrying this water weight on me the whole time. But it was so challenging. It was great. Probably the same experience that you had.
Exactly.
So I remember finally hearing the music of the finish line, right? So I come around the corner And so there's a fire thing, and I see a guy putting logs on the fire. So I thought that's what the obstacle was. So I grabbed a couple logs, I put them on the fire and crossed the finish line.
That's a great story. So for the listeners who don't know what a Spartan race is, it's a combination of running certain distances. Every race is a little different, and then completing obstacles. It could be, in most cases, it's 25 to 30 obstacles. A sprint is a 5K, a super is 10K, an ultra is 20K, I think. And they make these things arduously difficult. And the challenges could be, climbing a rope, jumping a wall, crawling under a wall, lifting heavy things, doing burpees. It's like just insane. So, and most people are like, why the hell put yourself through all that? And it's like, because you want to challenge yourself and make yourself better. So we are brothers in that for sure. But that's a good story.
And the signature obstacle is the fire jump at the end.
That's right. That's right.
I put a lot.
Not making fire, just jumping over it.
So anyway, fast forward. So I was so enamored with the whole sport, and so obviously Corona hit and everything got shut down. I happened to live on 15 acres, and I got to tell you, I was really sad because I'm 50. And I've only been healthy for about 3 years, because before that I was overweight, I smoked, all that stuff. So it was finally I got myself together, and now the whole world shut down. And I remember being kind of depressed over that. So I don't know if you remember, but I said I started posting some videos. I used to start running in the trails behind my house just to kind of, because I'm like, oh, they'll open up anytime now. They'll open up anytime now. So I just wanted to stay in shape. So I had some leftover wood from a deck that I had built. So I built a wall, a little 5-foot wall, and I'd start jumping over it and going through the trails. Next thing you know, I built a wall. Next thing, it's this giant obstacle course. And I don't even know how to describe it, but it's now like a full-blown obstacle course with like legit obstacles. I've invested a lot of money into it. I've invested money into the trails. So I don't even know how to describe it now.
I would say legit's probably the best word, because it is legit. So every 2 months you have an event up at your place?
It was about 2 months. Yeah.
Yeah. And how many people are showing up to these events? We just so everybody knows, we raced just this past weekend, right?
Yeah.
So
I think I think at the most I had was 160 people at one time.
Okay.
And I think this last weekend was about 60 people.
Yeah, it was a little light compared to some of the other races that you've hosted. And people have to sign waivers, and they compete. They pay an entrance fee like they would at a sanctioned Spartan or Tough Mudder race. The obstacles are challenging and getting more challenging as you continue to build out things. So what does the future look like for this?
I got to tell you, it's so great that we're having this conversation now, because I'm at a super crossroad right now. And the super crossroad is, so there's everything kind of was, it's a little bit skewed because everything was shut down, and this blew up because everything was shut down. Now that everything is open, there's more things, there's more opportunities for people to go different places. So it's really left me with a crossroad as to what do I do now? And I have to say, I'm looking forward to the end of the season, because right now I'm just trying to find a lane for it. Even though the events are going to be great, as best as I can, the events are going to be great. What do I do with this course is just like, I just don't know what to do with it. Like, it's already there. It's already built. I have a full-time job during the day, so it's not like I can go there and teach classes and do it. But even Clay, who runs the events with me, next year, we're saying, well, how many events do we want to have? Because again, all the big races are open, everything is open. So somebody where they had a choice of one or two events back when we were prime, now there's endless. You can get on a plane and you can go to Dallas now, and you can go anywhere. So I don't know, but I do know one thing is it's there. We're trying to put some kids stuff together, but I really have to say, I have no idea what direction this goes in, because it's a lot of work just to maintain it.
I'm sure.
And if there's somebody out there that has ideas or thoughts, I'd love to hear them, because I don't owe anything on it. I don't, it's great for me just to go back there and practice, but I just don't know, honestly, Gordon, at this point where I go with it.
Well, I got to say that I think it's a great field, especially for people that have never obstacle raced before. They can get out there, they can experience real life obstacles. They can run in what is, my opinion, probably a tougher trail race than most sanctioned events, which is a challenge. And they don't have the pressure of feeling like there's 2,500 people racing against them in some of these big venues that you and I have both raced in. Mm-hmm. So it's a great entry point for people who have never obstacle raced. And it may be a great venue for people who don't want to go to the big venues and race against 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 people at a time, because that is intimidating. It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of community that you're building there. To see the same people every couple of months is a lot of fun, and do their thing. It's a great time, I gotta say.
Well, good. I'm glad, because I do get a lot of that. I do get a lot of it's a very family orientated, because maybe your listeners don't know, but all the obstacles are kind of in the field, whereas in a Spartan they're usually peppered into the trails. So people can actually go there and just watch like an event happen, see people jumping and running, and if anybody's has an interest or just a curiosity, Obstacle Wonderland on Facebook, and you can see a lot of the stuff that goes on there. But it's guys like you, honestly, that you're one of the guys that show up all the time, and everybody from Elevate who come, it's really been good. And you do get a lot of that family kind of style atmosphere over there, and it just kind of happens. And maybe because there's just no pressure, people just go there and have a good time. But on the other side, we do try to make it competitive. We have medals, and I think next year we're going to try to make it more competitive, but also have family events too.
Yeah.
So,
and for the listeners, I don't know if you can see it, but right here on my coat rack is a whole bunch of medals that I've earned over the last couple of years. And many of those are from Gabe's Obstacle Wonderland in Wallkill, New York. Putting a little plug in there for you.
Well, you're going to get a bigger coat rack.
Got to get more medals. Yeah. It's amazing what you get motivated for at this stage of your life.
It's funny now when I go to sign up for something, like I actually, and I got to tell you, sometimes I just like to just sign up for just a 5K or something. It's almost easy, just kind of something just to stay going. And it's just like, what? No medal, no shirt?
You got free beer at the finish line? Exactly. Well, Gabe, it's really been enjoyable speaking with you. Do you have anything you'd like to add in before we wrap up?
I got to say, I can't thank you enough for having me on here. I love podcasts. I love stuff like this. And I'm going to tell you something really quick. Back, it's never really quick with me, but it got to be about 10 years ago when podcasts first started. I remember I opened up my MacBook Air in my kitchen, and it was a February, and I actually recorded one podcast on my computer, and it was talking about boat propellers. It was great. So, and I like listening to your podcast too. I can't wait to hear myself on the radio.
Well, who knows? Maybe you'll be more famous from my podcast than your TikToks.
I
don't know.
One day I want to interview you on your own podcast.
Okay, that sounds like a deal. Well, Gabe.
Thanks. I really appreciate that you thought of me to have me on here, and it means a lot to me. And so does your friendship, and I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Gabe. Here too. So I'm going to wrap up. I'm Gordon Coyle for the New York Business Leaders Podcast. I want to say thank you to Gabe. I appreciate him being on today and giving us some great time and stories. I'm going to post links to his social media feeds because I think you'll really enjoy some of the stuff he's posting online. And until next time, take care. If you have an interesting story that you'd like to tell on this podcast, give me a call, drop me an email. My contact info will be in the show notes as well. Thanks. Take care.
That's it for this week's episode of the New York Business Leaders Podcast. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss next week's episode. In the meantime, find more interviews and resources at nybusinessleaders.com.